My name is Jolene Carver. I am 28 years old. 7 years ago, my grandmother Alma Carver died and left me a 6-unit apartment building in Paterson, New Jersey. It was the only thing of real value she owned. She had purchased it in 1983 for $62,000 with insurance money from my grandfather's death. She maintained it for 38 years. She knew every tenant by name. She fixed leaky faucets herself until she was 74. She treated that building the way other people treat family heirlooms, because to her, it was one. When she died, she left it to me, not to my mother, not to my uncle, not to any of her other grandchildren, to me, Jolene Marie Carver, with one condition. My Uncle Frank would serve as property manager until I turned 25. After that, full control would transfer to me. Frank was supposed to collect rent, handle maintenance, pay expenses, and deposit the remaining income into a trust account in my name. He was paid a management fee of 10% of gross rents for the service. A standard arrangement. A fair deal. For 7 years, Frank told me the building was barely surviving. Roof problems, plumbing issues, electrical upgrades mandated by the city, vacant units that took months to fill. By his accounting, the building operated at a loss or broke even every single year. There was never any money left for me. Not a dollar, not a dime, not a single cent of the inheritance my grandmother had spent 38 years protecting. I believed him. For 7 years I believed him, because he was my uncle and my grandmother had trusted him. And I was 21 years old when she died, and I did not know anything about property management or rental income, or the mathematics of a 6-unit apartment building in Paterson, New Jersey. Then 3 months ago I drove to the building for the first time. I had never been there, not once in 7 years. Frank always told me there was no reason to visit. I will handle it, he said every time I mentioned going. You have enough to worry about. Let me take care of this for you. Let me take care of this for you. The words of a man who was stealing $8,000 a month from his dead mother's granddaughter. I parked across the street from the building on a Tuesday afternoon in July 2024. I did not know what I expected to find. A crumbling structure maybe? Boarded windows? A roof that sagged? Something that matched the story Frank had been telling me for 7 years. What I saw was a well-maintained 3-story brick building with clean windows, a painted front door, and flower boxes on the second-floor balconies. The sidewalk was swept, the small front lawn was mowed, a bicycle was locked to the porch railing. It looked like a building where people lived comfortably, where people had lived comfortably for years. I walked up to the front door. I knocked on apartment 1. A woman in her 50s answered. She had kind eyes and a dish towel over her shoulder, and the cautious expression of someone who was not expecting visitors. Can I help you? My name is Jolene Carver. I own this building. Her expression changed, not to surprise, to something else entirely, something that looked like relief mixed with anger. You are Jolene? She stepped back from the door. Oh, honey. We have been wondering when you would show up. She invited me inside. Her name was Diane Okafor. She had lived in apartment 1 for 6 years. She paid $1,300 a month, on time, every month, for 6 years. And what she told me over the next 45 minutes dismantled 7 years of lies. Let me tell you about Alma Carver before I tell you about what Frank did to her legacy. Because the building is not just a building. It is a woman's life compressed into bricks and mortar and 38 years of stubborn devotion. Alma was born in 1944 in Newark, New Jersey, the youngest of 5 children. Her father worked at the shipyard. Her mother cleaned houses for families in South Orange and Maplewood. They lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in the Ironbound neighborhood, where the sounds of Portuguese and Spanish and Italian mixed on every block like spices in a pot. Alma married my grandfather, Earl Carver, in 1965. He was a mechanic at a truck depot in Elizabeth. They had 2 children, my mother Patricia, born in 1967, and Frank, born in 1970. Earl died in 1982. Industrial accident at the depot. He was 39 years old. The life insurance payout was $75,000. Alma took $62,000 of it and bought the building on Elm Street in Paterson. People told her she was crazy. A black woman in 1983 buying a 6-unit building in Paterson. No experience, no connections, no business degree. Just $62,000 and the stubbornness of a woman who refused to let her husband's death be the end of her family's story. She learned everything. Plumbing from a YouTube channel before YouTube existed. meaning she read library books and asked hardware store employees until she understood. Electrical from a neighbor who was a retired electrician, property law from free legal clinics at Rutgers. She managed that building herself for 38 years. She painted the hallways every spring. She replaced the boiler in 2001. She installed new windows in 2008. She treated her tenants like family because many of them were the only family she had besides her own. Alma had a saying she repeated at every family gathering. This building is not an investment. It is a responsibility. I am holding it for the next generation. The next generation was me, not because I was special, because I was the one who listened. My mother, Patricia, moved to Virginia when I was 3 years old. She remarried, started a new family, and gradually disconnected from Alma. She visited twice a year, Christmas and Mother's Day. She called monthly sometimes. She was not cruel. She was absent, which in some ways is worse because at least cruelty is a form of attention. Frank stayed in New Jersey. He lived in East Orange. He worked as a supervisor at a warehouse distribution center. He made $63,000 a year. He was charming in the way that certain men are charming. Loud, confident, the kind of person who dominated every room he entered, not through intelligence, but through volume. Alma loved Frank, but she did not trust him. I know this because she told me. I was 19. We were sitting on the porch of her small house in Garfield, the one she moved to after she stopped managing the building herself. She was 77 then. Her knees were bad, her hands were stiff with arthritis, but her mind was a blade. "Jolene," she said, "when I die, that building goes to you. I have already made the arrangements with my lawyer. Why me? Grandma? Why not Mom or Uncle Frank?" She looked at me with those clear, knowing eyes. "Your mother left. She does not want the responsibility. And Frank?" She paused. "Frank wants the money. Not the building, not the tenants, not the responsibility, just the money. And if I give him the building, he will bleed it dry and sell it within 5 years." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "You are the one who understands what this building means. It is not about rent checks. It is about giving people a safe place to live. That is what your grandfather's insurance money bought. Not a business. A home. 6 homes. And someone needs to protect them." I promised her I would. She died 2 years later. Congestive heart failure. She was 79. I held her hand in the hospital. Frank was in the cafeteria getting coffee. My mother was on a plane from Virginia that landed 2 hours after Alma's heart stopped. The will was read on March 7, 2017, in the office of Alma's attorney, James Holbrook, a small practice in Hackensack, the same lawyer who had helped her buy the building in 1983. The building went to me. Frank was named property manager. 10% management fee. The arrangement was supposed to be temporary until I turned 25. I turned 25 3 years ago. Frank never transferred control, and I never asked him to, because he kept telling me there was nothing to transfer. Just debt, just repairs, just a building that was barely standing. He was lying about all of it. Diane Okafor sat me down at her kitchen table and told me things that made my stomach turn. Frank collects rent from all 6 units on the 1st of every month. She poured me a cup of tea I did not touch. He comes in person, cash or check. He does not accept electronic payments. He says the building does not have a business account for that. "How much do you pay?" $1,300 a month. She pulled out a folder from a drawer. "I keep copies of everything. My mother taught me that." She showed me 12 months of receipts, each one signed by Frank, each one for $1,300. Each one paid on time. "What about the other tenants? Do they pay the same?" She shook her head. "The units are different sizes. Apartment 2 pays $1,100. Apartments 3 and 4 pay $1,400 each. Apartment 5 pays $1,200. I did the math in my head. 1,300 plus 1,100 plus 1,400 plus 1,200 plus 1,200, 1,500. Total monthly rent, $7,900. Call it $8,000 with the rounding Frank probably applied. $8,000 a month, $96,000 a year. For 7 years, $672,000. My hands were shaking. I set down the teacup. "Has Frank done any major repairs in the time you have lived here?" Diane shook her head slowly. He replaced a faucet in apartment 4 about 2 years ago. He had someone come fix a broken window in apartment 6 last winter. Nothing major. No roof work, no plumbing overhaul, no electrical upgrades. He told me the roof was failing. Honey, that roof was replaced in 2015. Your grandmother did it herself. Hired a crew, supervised every shingle. It is a 15-year roof. It has 8 years left on the warranty. He told me the plumbing was deteriorating. The plumbing was updated in 2012. Copper pipes throughout. Your grandmother saved for 3 years to pay for it. He told me there were vacant units for months at a time. Diane looked at me. I have lived here for 6 years. The Williamses in apartment 3 have been here for 9 years. Mrs. Chen in apartment 5 has been here since 2014. There has not been a vacant unit in this building for longer than 3 weeks in the entire time I have been here. Every word Frank had told me for 7 years was a lie. Every repair he had cited was fabricated or wildly exaggerated. Every vacant unit he had claimed was filled and paying. Every dollar of the $672,000 he had collected was stolen. I asked Diane one more question. Do you know where the rent money goes? She hesitated. Then she opened a second folder, this one thicker than the first. About 2 years ago, I started worrying. Frank told us the building might need to be sold because of financial problems. I did not want to lose my home, so I started keeping track. She pulled out bank deposit slips she had photographed when Frank accidentally left his bag open during a rent collection visit. Account number visible. Bank name visible. TD Bank. Account holder. Frank R. Carver. Not a trust account. Not a business account. Not an account in my name. Frank's personal checking account. For 7 years, my uncle had been depositing my rental income directly into his own bank account. I photographed everything Diane showed me. Then I knocked on every other door in the building. Every tenant confirmed the same story. Rent paid on time. Every month. For years. No major repairs. No vacancies. No financial problems, and a property manager who came once a month, collected checks, and disappeared. Mrs. Chen in apartment 5 said something that crystallized everything. Your grandmother was a wonderful woman. She took care of this building like it was her child. She would be heartbroken if she knew what Frank was doing. She was right. Alma would be heartbroken. But she would not be surprised. Because she had known. She had always known what Frank was. Frank wants the money. Not the building. Not the tenants. Not the responsibility. Just the money. She had warned me. And I had let 7 years pass without checking. That was my failure. Everything that followed was Frank's. I drove home from Patterson that evening and sat in my apartment for 2 hours without moving. My apartment. The 1-bedroom in East Orange that I rented for $950 a month. The one with the leaky faucet and the radiator that clanked all winter. The one I could barely afford on my salary as a receptionist at a dental practice. I earned $34,000 a year. I had $1,100 in savings. I drove a 2009 Toyota Corolla with 187,000 miles on it. 7 miles away, my uncle was depositing $8,000 a month of my money into his personal bank account. He had been doing this for 84 months, $672,000, minus his 10% management fee, which he was legitimately entitled to, $67,200. Net amount stolen, $604,800, $604,000. While I counted quarters for laundry and ate ramen noodles 3 nights a week and told myself that the building was just a burden I was lucky not to be dealing with, I did not confront Frank. I did not call him. I did not give him any indication that I had visited the building or spoken to the tenants. Instead, I did 3 things. First, I called James Holbrook, my grandmother's attorney, the man who had drafted the will. He was 81 years old now, semi-retired, but he answered the phone on the second ring. Jolene. His voice was warm but cautious. I have been hoping you would call. You knew? I suspected. He paused. Your grandmother asked me to check on Frank periodically. I sent him annual requests for financial statements. He sent me summaries that showed the building operating at near zero profit. I had no way to verify them without an audit, and I did not have the authority to order one. He sighed. I should have pushed harder. I should have contacted you directly. That is my failing, and I own it. Can you help me now? I can refer you to someone better suited for this fight. A woman named Priya Mehta, real estate litigation. She has handled cases like this before. fiduciary fraud, embezzlement by property managers. She is excellent. He gave me her number. I called the next morning. Second, I went to the Passaic County Clerk's office and pulled every public record related to the building: property tax receipts, building permits, code inspection reports. The property taxes had been paid on time every year. Good. But they were being paid from an account I did not recognize. Not my trust account. Not Frank's personal account. A third account labeled Elm Street Properties LLC. Frank had created a limited liability company using my building as the asset. Without my knowledge, without my consent. I pulled the LLC filing from the New Jersey Secretary of State website. Elm Street Properties LLC. Registered August 2018. 1 year after my grandmother's death. Managing member, Frank R. Carver. He had not just stolen the rent. He had created a corporate entity around my property and installed himself as the owner on paper. Third, I requested a copy of the trust account that was supposed to hold my rental income. The account James Holbrook had set up according to the will's instructions. The account Frank was supposed to deposit the net rental income into every month. The bank sent me the statement within a week. The Jolene Carver Trust account had been opened in March 2017 with an initial deposit of $500. It currently held $512. The $12 was accumulated interest over 7 years. $512 out of $672,000. That is what my uncle had left me in the account my grandmother had created to protect my future. I saved every document, every receipt, every filing, every bank statement. I organized them chronologically in a binder, the way my grandmother would have organized them. Carefully, methodically, with the understanding that truth needs structure to be heard. Then I called Priya Mehta. Priya Mehta's office was on the 7th floor of a building in downtown Newark. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Passaic River, framed newspaper articles on the walls about cases she had won. Real estate fraud, fiduciary breach, embezzlement. She was 43 years old, sharp-featured, the kind of attorney who listened with her entire body and spoke only when she had something precise to say. I sat across from her with my binder of documents and told her everything. The building, the will, Frank's appointment as property manager, the 7 years of lies, the tenant testimonies, the bank statements, the LLC he had created without my knowledge. She reviewed the documents for 40 minutes without speaking. When she finished, she set down her pen and looked at me. Jolene, what your uncle did is not a gray area. This is embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, forgery, if he signed any documents on your behalf without authorization. And the LLC he created using your property as the underlying asset is textbook conversion. She pulled a legal pad toward her and began writing. Here is what we are looking at. $672,000 in gross rents collected over 7 years, minus his authorized 10% management fee of $67,200. Net stolen amount, $604,800. She continued. Additionally, he created an LLC using your property without your consent. If he has been filing taxes for that LLC reporting rental income as his own, he has also committed tax fraud. The IRS will be interested in that. What about the building itself? Can he claim any ownership? No. The will is unambiguous. The building belongs to you. The LLC he created has no legal basis. You never transferred ownership. You never signed any documents authorizing the formation of that entity. It is a fiction built on stolen property. Priya set down her pen. I am going to file 3 actions. First, a civil lawsuit for embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, and conversion. Second, a motion to dissolve the fraudulent LLC and restore clear title to you. Third, a referral to the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office for criminal charges. She paused. I need to ask you something. Are you prepared for this? Frank is your uncle, your grandmother's son. This will destroy your relationship with him, and possibly with other family members who side with him. My grandmother built that building with my grandfather's life insurance money. She maintained it for 38 years. She left it to me because she trusted me to protect it. Frank stole from her legacy. He stole from me, and he looked me in the eye every Thanksgiving for 7 years and told me the building was losing money while he deposited $8,000 a month into his own account. I looked at Priya. I am prepared. Good. She opened her laptop. Let us start with the tenants. I want sworn affidavits from every one of them. Dates, amounts, payment methods, and I want copies of every receipt they have. I spent the following week collecting affidavits. Every tenant cooperated, every single one. Not because they owed me anything, but because they had watched Frank lie for years and they were tired of it. Diane Okafor provided the most detailed testimony. 6 years of receipts, photographs of Frank's deposit slips, a handwritten log of every interaction she had had with him, including 3 occasions when she had asked him directly about the building's owner, and he had said the owner lives out of state and is not involved. Not involved. He told my tenants I was not involved in my own building. Priya compiled the evidence into a filing that was 143 pages long. Every dollar traced, every lie documented, every year of theft laid out in black and white. The civil lawsuit was filed on August 19, 2024. Passaic County Superior Court, Carver v. Carver. Case number PAS L384124. The complaint named Frank R. Carver as defendant and Elm Street Properties LLC as a co-defendant. It alleged embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, conversion, unjust enrichment, and unauthorized formation of a business entity using stolen property. Total damages sought $604,800 in stolen rent, plus statutory damages, plus dissolution of the fraudulent LLC. Frank was served on August 22nd at his home in East Orange. A Thursday afternoon, he called me 43 minutes later. I know the exact time because I was looking at my phone waiting for it to ring. Jolene, what is this? His voice was the same confident, commanding tone he always used. The Frank voice. The one that filled rooms and ended arguments before they started. What are you doing? I am recovering 7 years of stolen rent. Stolen? He laughed. A sharp, performative sound. I have been managing that building for 7 years. Do you have any idea how much work goes into maintaining a 6-unit property? The tenants, the repairs, the city inspections, the insurance? What repairs, Frank? The roof, the plumbing, the electrical. The roof was replaced by Grandma in 2015. It has a 15-year warranty. The plumbing was upgraded in 2012. Copper pipes. And the tenants tell me you have not done a single major repair in 7 years. Long silence. You went to the building. Yes, I did. Something I should have done 7 years ago. Those tenants do not know the full picture. There are expenses they do not see. Behind-the-scenes costs. Then you will have no problem producing receipts, invoices, contractor agreements, bank statements showing payments for these behind-the-scenes expenses. Another silence. Longer this time, we can work this out, Jolene. Family does not sue family. Let me sit down with you and explain the finances. There are things you do not understand about property management. I understand $672,000 in rent collected over 7 years. I understand a trust account with $512 in it. I understand an LLC you created using my property without my knowledge. And I understand that you deposited my rental income into your personal checking account every month for 84 months. I paused. That is what I understand, Frank. Is there something I am missing? He hung up. My mother called the next day. Patricia, the one who had moved to Virginia when I was 3, the one who visited twice a year and called monthly sometimes. Jolene, Frank told me about the lawsuit. She sounded tired, not angry, resigned. The voice of a woman who had spent her life avoiding family conflict and had just realized it had followed her. Anyway, then you know what he did. He says it is a misunderstanding, that the building expenses were higher than the income, that he was covering shortfalls from his own pocket. Then he should have no problem proving that in court. She sighed. Can you not just talk to him? Work it out privately? Privately. The way he privately stole $600,000. The way he privately created an LLC with my building. The way he privately told me for 7 years that my grandmother's legacy was worthless. Jolene, please. Mom, you left. You moved to Virginia and you let Frank handle everything because it was convenient. You did not ask questions. You did not check on the building. You did not check on me, and now you are calling because Frank asked you to convince me to drop the lawsuit. That is not what. She trailed off, because it was exactly what was happening. I love you, Mom. But this is between me and Frank, and it is going to be decided by a judge, not at a family dinner. She did not call again. The discovery phase of the lawsuit was devastating for Frank. Not because Priya was aggressive, though she was, because the evidence was so straightforward that defending against it was like trying to argue that the sun does not rise. Priya subpoenaed Frank's bank records from TD Bank. 7 years of statements. Every month. Every transaction. The records arrived in October. 4 bankers' boxes delivered to Priya's office by a bank compliance officer who had clearly seen enough fraud cases to recognize one on site. Priya and her paralegal spent 2 weeks mapping every dollar. The result was a spreadsheet 47 pages long. Every rent payment from every tenant for every month of every year from March 2017 through July 2024. Total deposits matching tenant rent amounts. $671,800 total transfers from Frank's account to the Jolene Carver Trust account. $500. The initial deposit. Nothing else. Not a single additional transfer in 7 years. Total withdrawals from Frank's account during the same period. $663,000. Spent on the following categories that Priya's paralegal meticulously categorized from bank statement descriptions. Auto loans. 2 vehicles. A 2019 Ford F-150. A 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Combined payments over 4 years. $87,000. Mortgage payments on Frank's East Orange home. $126,000 over 7 years. Travel, 14 separate charges to airlines, hotels, and resorts in Florida, the Dominican Republic, and Cancun. Combined total, $43,000. Restaurants and entertainment, 812 individual transactions. Combined total, $61,000. Clothing and personal shopping, 217 transactions at department stores, men's clothing retailers, and online shopping platforms. Combined total, $28,000. A boat, purchased in June 2021 from a marine dealer in Point Pleasant, $22,000. And the remaining $300,000 went to general living expenses, cash withdrawals, and transfers to a woman named Keisha Daniels, who Priya's investigator identified as Frank's girlfriend of 4 years. She had received over $97,000 in transfers from Frank's account, an account funded entirely by my stolen rental income. Frank had spent my grandmother's legacy on trucks, vacations, boats, and his girlfriend. Priya also subpoenaed the records for Elm Street Properties LLC, the fraudulent company Frank had created using my building. The tax filings for the LLC showed rental income reported as Frank's business income. He had been paying taxes on money that was legally mine through a company that should not have existed. The IRS was going to have questions about that. Many questions. A man named Raymond Sykes from a small practice in Newark. Raymond was experienced, but he was working with facts that no amount of experience could spin into something defensible. His initial strategy was to argue that Frank's management fees should have been higher, that 10% was below market rate, and that Frank had effectively been subsidizing the property with his own time and labor. He calculated what he called a fair market management fee of 25% and argued that Frank was owed the difference. Priya demolished this argument in her response brief. The will specifies a 10% management fee. Mr. Carver accepted this arrangement voluntarily when he assumed the role of property manager. He did not petition the court for modification. He did not negotiate a different rate with the beneficiary. He simply stole the money and is now attempting to retroactively justify the theft by claiming he deserved more, she continued. Furthermore, even at 25%, Mr. Carver would have been entitled to $168,000 over 7 years. He took $604,000. The gap between his proposed fair rate and what he actually stole is $436,000. No management fee in the world covers boats, vacations, and transfers to a romantic partner. Raymond Sykes called Priya after reading the response. According to Priya, the conversation lasted 4 minutes. Miss Mehta, is there room for a settlement discussion? Your client stole over $600,000 from a 21-year-old orphan over 7 years. The room for discussion is the courtroom. The trial was set for January 6, 2025. Passaic County Superior Court, Judge Harold Washington presiding. January 6, 2025, 9:15 in the morning. Courtroom 4C. Judge Harold Washington was in his late 50s, a former public defender turned judge who had spent 30 years on the bench in Passaic County. He had a reputation for patience with attorneys and zero tolerance for liars. I arrived with Priya at 8:45. We carried 3 bankers' boxes of exhibits: the tenant affidavits, the LLC filings, the trust account statements. 7 years of evidence organized with the precision my grandmother would have demanded. Frank arrived at 9 with Raymond Sykes. He was wearing a suit I did not recognize. Expensive, navy blue, French cuffs, the kind of suit you buy when you want a courtroom to see a professional and not a thief. He did not look at me. Not in the hallway. Not in the courtroom. He sat at the defense table and stared straight ahead like a man watching his own future narrow in real time. Priya presented our case first. She was methodical and devastating. She started with the will. She read the relevant provisions aloud. The building goes to Jolene. Frank serves as property manager, 10% fee, net income deposited into the trust account. Then she showed the trust account balance, $512. 7 years, $512. She turned to the bank records. Every month, every deposit, every dollar traced from tenant to Frank's personal account and then outward into trucks, vacations, boats, restaurants, and transfers to his girlfriend. The courtroom was silent. She called Diane Okafor as the first witness. Diane described 6 years of paying rent on time, 6 years of Frank collecting checks, 6 years of no major repairs, 6 years of being told the building's owner was not involved. She called Mrs. Chen from apartment 5. Same story, same payments, same lies. She called Marcus Williams from apartment 3. 9 years in the building. Longer than Frank had been managing it. Marcus had known my grandmother personally. Mrs. Carver was a good woman, Marcus testified. She took care of this building. She took care of us. When Frank took over, everything changed. Not the building. The building stayed the same because there was nothing wrong with it. What changed was the feeling, like someone was taking but not giving back. Priya entered the LLC documents into evidence. She showed the court that Frank had created a company using my property as the underlying asset, without my knowledge or consent. She entered the tax filings, showing Frank reporting my rental income as his business income through the fraudulent LLC. And then, she showed the spreadsheet. 47 pages, every dollar, every month, every year. $671,800 in. $512 to me. Judge Washington studied the spreadsheet for a long time. He removed his glasses. He put them back on. He looked at Frank. Mr. Carver, I have reviewed the plaintiff's evidence. Before your attorney presents your defense, I want to ask you one question directly, and I want the truth. Frank's attorney stood. Your Honor, I would advise my client. I am not asking your client to incriminate himself, Mr. Sykes. I am asking him a simple question. He looked at Frank. Mr. Carver, did you deposit the rental income from this building into the trust account your mother's will established for your niece? Frank swallowed. Not all of it, Your Honor. How much did you deposit? The initial $500 to open the account, and the remaining $671,300. Frank's mouth opened, closed. His attorney put a hand on his arm. Mr. Carver? Judge Washington waited. I used it for building expenses. The judge held up the spreadsheet. I have 47 pages of bank records that show this money was spent on vehicles, travel, restaurants, a boat, and transfers to a personal associate. Can you identify which of these expenditures were building expenses? Frank said nothing. Judge Washington set down the spreadsheet. I have heard enough from the plaintiff. Mr. Sykes, you may present your defense. Raymond Sykes stood. His defense lasted 40 minutes. He argued that Frank had worked tirelessly managing the property, that his compensation was inadequate, that the building required more attention than a 10% fee could cover. He did not call Frank to the stand, a wise decision given that the judge had just watched Frank fail to answer a direct question about where $600,000 went. Judge Washington delivered his ruling that afternoon. The court finds that Frank R. Carver systematically embezzled rental income belonging to the plaintiff, Jolene Marie Carver, over a period of 7 years. The evidence is overwhelming and uncontested. Judge Washington read from his prepared ruling. His voice was steady, but something underneath it was not. The controlled frustration of a man who had seen fraud before but was still capable of being angered by it. The total rental income collected by the defendant from March 2017 through July 2024 is $671,800. The authorized management fee at 10% is $67,180. The net amount owed to the plaintiff is $604,620. He looked at Frank. Of this amount, the defendant deposited $500 into the trust account established by the decedent's will. The remaining $604,120 was deposited into the defendant's personal bank account and spent on personal expenses including vehicles, vacations, a boat, and transfers to a third party. He set down the document. The court orders the following. 1. Full restitution of $604,620. 2. Statutory damages of $120,000 for breach of fiduciary duty. 3. Immediate dissolution of Elm Street Properties LLC, which was formed fraudulently without the property owner's knowledge or consent. 4. Transfer of full property management authority to the plaintiff effective immediately. 5. Attorney fees in the amount of $43,000. Total judgment, $767,620. Raymond Sykes stood. Your Honor, my client does not have the liquid assets to satisfy this judgment immediately. The court will entertain a structured payment plan, Judge Washington said. But I will also note that the defendant owns 2 vehicles purchased with the stolen funds, a boat, and has a mortgage on a home whose payments were made with the plaintiff's money. These assets may be subject to seizure if payments are not made on schedule. He looked at Frank one final time. Mr. Carver, your mother entrusted you with her legacy. She named you as steward of a property she spent 38 years protecting. You betrayed that trust in the most fundamental way possible. You stole from a dead woman's granddaughter while looking her in the eye and telling her there was nothing left. He paused. This court does not often editorialize, but I want the record to reflect that in 30 years on this bench, few cases have demonstrated such a complete and deliberate betrayal of family trust. The gavel came down. Priya also filed the criminal referral with the Passaic County Prosecutor's Office. Within 6 weeks, Frank was charged with theft by deception, embezzlement, and fraudulent business practices. He surrendered voluntarily in February. Released on bail pending trial, the IRS opened a separate investigation into the tax filings for Elm Street Properties LLC. Frank had reported my rental income as his business income for 6 years. The tax liability plus penalties and interest was estimated at over $140,000. Frank's boat was seized in March. His Ford F-150 was seized in April. The Jeep Grand Cherokee was sold by court order in May. Combined recovery from asset seizures, $71,000 applied to the judgment. Raymond Sykes withdrew as Frank's attorney in April, citing his client's inability to pay legal fees. Frank represented himself at the criminal hearing in June. He pleaded guilty to theft by deception in exchange for the remaining charges being dropped. Sentencing: 3 years probation, full restitution, community service. The structured payment plan required Frank to pay $5,000 per month for the next 11 years. His warehouse supervisor's salary would barely cover it. The family fallout was exactly what I expected. My mother called once to say she was disappointed in both of us. My cousins on Frank's side stopped speaking to me. An aunt I barely knew sent me a letter calling me ungrateful for destroying my uncle's life. Ungrateful. The word my family uses when they mean you refuse to be stolen from quietly. It has been 6 months since the trial. I am 28 years old. I own a 6-unit apartment building in Paterson, New Jersey, free and clear. No fraudulent LLC, no property manager skimming every dollar, no uncle telling me the building is worthless while he spends my inheritance on boats and vacations. I manage the building myself now, the way my grandmother did. I drive to Paterson every Saturday morning. I check on the building, I talk to the tenants, I handle maintenance requests. I make sure the hallways are clean and the front lawn is mowed and the flower boxes on the second floor balconies have fresh soil in the spring. Diane Okafor still lives in apartment 1. She brings me coffee when I come for inspections. We sit on the front steps and talk about the building and the neighborhood and the woman who built something from nothing and trusted her granddaughter to protect it. Your grandmother would be proud of you, Diane told me last month. She is probably up there right now checking the gutters. I laughed. For the first time in a long time, I laughed about something connected to this building. Not because the pain was gone, because the weight had shifted. It was no longer the weight of betrayal. It was the weight of responsibility. And responsibility carried with love does not feel heavy. It feels like purpose. The rental income now goes directly into a business account in my name. $8,000 a month, $96,000 a year. After expenses, maintenance reserves, insurance, and property taxes, The net income is approximately $61,000 annually. Combined with my salary, it has transformed my financial life. I moved out of the East Orange one-bedroom. I rent a small house in Garfield now. 2 bedrooms, a garden, 3 blocks from the house where my grandmother lived her final years. I drive past it every morning on my way to work. The new owners planted roses in the front yard. Alma would have approved. She loved roses. Frank and I do not speak. The silence between us is not complicated. It is simple. He stole from me. He stole from his own mother's legacy. He looked me in the eye at family gatherings for 7 years and lied. There's no conversation that repairs that. There's no apology that rebuilds a bridge burned with $600,000 of stolen trust. My mother calls occasionally now. Short conversations. She asks about the building. She asks about my health. She does not ask about Frank. We're learning to talk to each other the way people learn to walk after an injury. Slowly, carefully, without any guarantee that we will ever move the way we used to. I hung my grandmother's photograph in the hallway of the apartment building, the same photo from her house in Garfield. Alma Carver, standing in front of the building in 1983. The day she bought it, she is wearing a yellow dress and holding the keys and smiling with the fierce joy of a woman who had just turned her husband's death into 6 families' homes. Below the photograph, I added a small brass plaque, the same words she said to me on her porch when I was 19. This building is not an investment. It is a responsibility. I am holding it for the next generation. I am holding it now, Grandma, the way you taught me, with both hands and my whole heart. If you are still listening, let me leave you with this. My grandmother spent 38 years building something that mattered. Not a fortune, not an empire. A building. 6 apartments. 6 families. 6 safe places to come home to. She did this with insurance money from a husband who died too young, and a stubbornness that refused to let his death be the end of the story. She left it to me because she believed I would protect it. My uncle believed I would not check. For 7 years he was right, and that is the lesson I want you to carry with you. Trust is not a substitute for verification. Love is not a substitute for oversight. And the people who tell you not to worry are sometimes the ones you should worry about most. If someone in your life is managing something that belongs to you, a property, an account, an inheritance, a trust, go look at it today. Not tomorrow, not next month, not when you have time. Today. Because every day you do not check is another day someone else controls your story. My grandmother's building is standing. Her tenants are safe. Her legacy is intact, not because the system worked, because one granddaughter finally drove to Patterson on a Tuesday afternoon and knocked on a door. That knock changed everything. Yours might too. Thank you for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, if it reminded you that what you own deserves your attention and your protection, share it. Like, subscribe, leave a comment telling me what you would have done. Because everyone deserves to know what belongs to them, and nobody, not even family, has the right to hide it from you.